Have you ever wondered how the Israel-Palestine conflict, one of the most enduring political issues of our time, originated? To understand the genesis of this conflict, we need to journey back to the late 19th and early 20th century. During this period, a political movement known as Zionism began to gain momentum among Jewish communities in Europe. Zionism, at its core, advocated for the establishment of a Jewish state in the land of Palestine, a place that held significant religious and historical importance for the Jewish people. The rise of Zionism led to a substantial increase in Jewish immigration to Palestine. This movement was not without controversy, as the land was already home to a predominantly Arab population. As more and more Jewish immigrants settled in Palestine, the existing demographic balance began to shift, laying the groundwork for future tensions. Now let's talk about the Balfour Declaration of 1917. This was a letter from the British Foreign Secretary, Arthur Balfour, to Lord Rothschild, a leader of the British Jewish community. In this letter, Balfour expressed Britain's support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This declaration had profound implications. It was seen by many Jews as a green light for the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. However, it also led to increased resentment among the Arab population, who felt that their rights and claims to the land were being overlooked. As the 20th century progressed, these tensions between the Jewish immigrants and the Arab population escalated. This was not just a territorial dispute, but a clash of national identities and aspirations. As Jewish immigration continued, and as the British mandate over Palestine came to an end, the conflict between Jews and Arabs intensified. The stage was set for a conflict that would span generations. This historical backdrop provides a glimpse into the genesis of the Israel-Palestine conflict, a complex issue that remains unresolved to this day. The aftermath of the Second World War brought new dynamics to the Israel-Palestine equation. The war left the world grappling with the horrors of the Holocaust, a genocide that led to the systematic murder of 6 million Jews. This horrific event left an indelible mark on global consciousness, leading to increased sympathy for Jewish refugees seeking a homeland of their own. In the midst of this, the United Nations introduced a partition plan in 1947. This plan aimed to divide the British Mandate of Palestine into 2 separate states, one Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem under international administration. The plan was greeted with jubilation by the Jewish community, but was vehemently rejected by the Arab nations. Despite the opposition, the State of Israel was proclaimed on the 14th of May, 1948. Israel's creation was a moment of triumph for Jewish people worldwide, a beacon of hope after the devastation of the Holocaust. However, for Palestinians, it was a catastrophe, or Nakba in Arabic. They saw this as the usurpation of their homeland, a land they had inhabited for centuries. Almost immediately after the creation of Israel, war broke out. Israel found itself under attack from neighboring Arab countries. This 1948 Arab-Israeli War, also known as the War of Independence, saw Israel successfully defend its sovereignty, but it also resulted in a significant displacement of Palestinian Arabs, further fueling the conflict. The creation of Israel marked a new chapter in the conflict, one that continues to this day. The issues that arose from the post-World War II developments, refugee crises, territorial disputes, and questions of national identity are still at the heart of the Israel-Palestine conflict. These complexities make the path to peace a challenging one, but understanding the historical context is an essential step towards resolution. The year 1967 marked a significant turning point in the Israel-Palestine conflict. In a matter of 6 days, from June 5th to the 10th, a war raged that would change the geography and the dynamics of the conflict. This war, known as the Six-Day War, saw Israel pitted against Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. With a swift and decisive victory, Israel expanded its territories, acquiring the West Bank from Jordan, the Gaza Strip, and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, and the Golan Heights from Syria. This territorial acquisition was significant. It meant that Israel now controlled all of Jerusalem, a city of immense religious and cultural significance. But more than that, it also meant that a large number of Palestinians now lived under Israeli control. The West Bank and the Gaza Strip, areas densely populated with Palestinians, were now in Israeli hands. In the aftermath of the war, Israel began a policy of settlement in these newly acquired territories. Jewish settlers, backed by the Israeli government, established communities in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. This policy was met with international criticism, as many considered it a violation of international law. Yet the settlements continued to grow, further entrenching the divisions between Israelis and Palestinians. As the settlements expanded, so did Palestinian resistance. New movements emerged, dedicated to the struggle for Palestinian self-determination. These movements, including the Palestine Liberation Organization and later Hamas, waged a long and often violent struggle against Israeli occupation. The Six-Day War and its aftermath set the stage for the next phase of the conflict. The new geographical reality, coupled with the settlement policy, turned the conflict into a struggle not just for land, but also for identity and self-determination. It fueled resistance movements and deepened the sense of injustice among Palestinians, while also instilling a sense of vulnerability and siege mentality among Israelis. The Six-Day War changed the physical and political landscape of the conflict. Efforts towards peace have been as constant as the conflict itself. The history of the Israel-Palestine conflict is punctuated by numerous attempts at reconciliation, with two notable milestones being the Camp David Accords and the Oslo Accords. The Camp David Accords, signed in late September 1978, marked a significant turning point in Middle East diplomacy. It was the first peace treaty between Israel and any of its Arab neighbors, with Egypt recognizing Israel's right to exist. In return, Israel agreed to withdraw from the Sinai Peninsula, which it had occupied since the Six-Day War. This agreement demonstrated that peace, though difficult, was possible. A little over a decade later, in 1993, the Oslo Accords were signed. These agreements established a framework for future relations between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, recognizing their mutual legitimate and political rights. The accords aimed to facilitate the creation of a Palestinian state alongside Israel, a concept known as the two-state solution. However, the road to peace is never straight. The intifadas, or uprisings, have significantly impacted the peace process. The first intifada, which began in late 1987, was a largely civilian-led resistance to Israeli occupation. The second intifada, starting in 2000, was much more violent, with both sides accused of committing war crimes. These uprisings have not only led to a tragic loss of life, but also have strained diplomatic relations and hardened attitudes on both sides. Yet, despite the setbacks, the search for a peaceful resolution persists. There have been periods of relative calm, and there are still many who strive for coexistence. The ongoing struggle is a reminder that while peace accords can be signed and treaties ratified, the true challenge lies in changing hearts and minds. The goal remains: two states, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security. The road to peace is fraught with obstacles, but the journey continues. And as the journey continues, so too does the hope for a peaceful resolution to this long-standing conflict. As we stand today, the Israel-Palestine conflict remains unresolved, but what could be the way forward? Unraveling the current state of the conflict, we see Jerusalem, a city sacred to three major religions, caught in the crossfire. Its status remains a contentious issue, with Israel considering it its undivided capital, while Palestinians envision East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state. Then, we have the settlements issue. Israeli settlements in the West Bank, deemed illegal by international law, have been a constant source of tension. These settlements have been expanding, exacerbating the conflict by diminishing the land available for a potential Palestinian state. Moreover, the blockade of Gaza, implemented by Israel and Egypt citing security reasons, has resulted in an ongoing humanitarian crisis. This has further strained the relations between the two sides and made peace negotiations even more challenging. So, what could be the solutions to this protracted conflict? There are a few proposals on the table. The most widely discussed is the two-state solution, envisioning an independent Palestine alongside Israel. This solution, though supported by the United Nations and many countries, is fraught with difficulties, primarily due to disagreements over borders, security, and the status of Jerusalem. Another proposition is the one-state solution, a single democratic state where Israelis and Palestinians would live side by side with equal rights. However, this solution faces significant opposition, as it is seen to threaten the Jewish character of Israel. Lastly, international intervention is seen as a possible way forward. Some argue that a neutral third party could help mediate the conflict and ensure that any agreements are upheld. However, the effectiveness of such intervention depends on the willingness of both parties to reach a compromise. The Israel-Palestine conflict is complex and multifaceted, but understanding its history and dynamics is the first step towards finding a solution.